At long last, we can finally say, Happy Easter. And along those lines, Alleluia, right? He is risen. Today's gospel comes from Luke and is one of my absolute favorite scenes in all four gospels. I am a little biased, though, since Luke is my favorite gospel, and this is probably one of my favorite scenes in my favorite gospel. And I'm going to read it for you. Now that very day, two of them were going to a village 7 miles from Jerusalem called Emmaus, and they were conversing about all the things that had occurred. And it happened that while they were conversing and debating, Jesus himself drew near and walked with them, but their eyes were prevented from recognizing him. He asked them, "What are you discussing as you walk along?" They stopped, looking downcast. One of them, named Cleopas, said to him in reply, "Are you the only visitor to Jerusalem who does not know of the things that have taken place here in these days?" And he replied to them, "What sort of things?" They said to him, "The things that happened to Jesus the Nazarene, who was a prophet mighty in deed and word before God and all the people. How our chief priests and rulers both handed him over to a sentence of death and crucified him. But we were hoping that he would be the one to redeem Israel. And besides all this, it is now the 3rd day since this took place. Some women from our group, however, have astounded us. They were at the tomb early in the morning and did not find his body. They came back and reported that they had indeed seen a vision of angels who announced that he was alive. Then some of those with us went to the tomb and found things just as the women had described, but him they did not see. And he said to them, "Oh, how foolish you are! How slow of heart to believe all that the prophets spoke. Was it not necessary that the Messiah should suffer these things and enter into his glory?" Then beginning with Moses and all the prophets, he interpreted to them what referred to him in all the scriptures. As they approached the village to which they were going, he gave the impression that he was going on farther. But they urged him, "Stay with us, for it is nearly evening and the day is almost over." So he went in to stay with them. And it happened that, while he was with them at table, he took bread, said the blessing, broke it, and gave it to them. With that, their eyes were open, and they recognized him, but he vanished from their sight. Then they said to each other, "Were not our hearts burning within us while he spoke to us on the way and opened the scriptures to us?" So they set out at once and returned to Jerusalem, where they found gathered together the 11 and those with them, who were saying, "The Lord has truly been raised and has appeared to Simon." Then the two recounted what had taken place on the way and how he was made known to them in the breaking of the bread. I absolutely love these 20 some odd verses of St. Luke. And there's always a few things that come to mind whenever I read this passage, or this passage comes up during the 3-year cycle of the church's readings. For one, where exactly were these two apostles going? The other 11 had stayed behind, but these two disciples of the Lord decided to go off. And part of me can't help but think, after everything that had happened, everything that I've seen happen, maybe I would need to take a walk too. But as they decide to walk along their journey, they meet the Master. And there's this distinct impression throughout the Gospels that whenever someone encounters the risen Lord in his glorified body, people do not recognize him. That his glorified body is somehow different. And that we can't fully recognize him because of this body that has gone through such a divine transformation. And I love this coyness of the Lord. What are you discussing? As if he doesn't know what it is. But like the true teacher, he wants to know what his students are talking about. And they continue along the way, and with each step, the sun sinks a little lower down into the horizon. And finally, they say those three words that anyone who knows and falls in love with Jesus inevitably is going to say, "Stay with us. We want more. Stay with us. We can't bear being separated from you." And the master agrees. He stays with them. He stays with them, and what does he do? Two primary things. He reads them the scriptures, the Old Testament, and he breaks bread. He stays with them and literally offers the Mass to them. The Master, who is Lord of all the liturgies, reads, like we do every Sunday and every day, from this book of scriptures that we call holy. And he follows that up by performing four principal actions. He takes bread, he blesses it, he breaks it, and he gives it. And it is at this specific action that while they are there saying, "Stay with us," he vanishes. He disappears from their eyes. He disappears from their physical sight. And I love this four-part action, this quadpartite action, if you will, of taking, blessing, breaking, and giving. It's a very priestly act, and of course they recognize this. They recognize this because from scriptures we know that this is happening on the evening of Easter Sunday. And because it's happening on the eve of Easter Sunday, that just a few days ago in the upper room, he also took bread, blessed it, broke it, and gave it. And he followed that up in a way that is most fitting on the cross on the next day, that day called Good Friday, by taking his very self and breaking it and giving it to all. And I love St. Luke because St. Luke is really the only gospel writer to write about this suffering Messiah. But it's so important to write about this suffering Messiah because it's like this common thread amongst all humanity. Not that we're going to suffer or have a bad time or struggle in this world, but that if we truly are an Easter people, that Easter has to follow death. That our joy has to follow something. And that every tear will eventually be wiped away. And Luke really is the only one who kind of describes and uses this language to describe the Lord. Stay with us, they beg the master. And it's only when, as St. Luke describes to us, it is only in the action of what that suffering is, the breaking, right? Because Luke does not say they recognize the Lord in the blessing of the bread, or in the taking of the bread, or even in the giving of the bread. No, they recognize him in the breaking of the bread. They recognize the Lord by this very action that we saw on Good Friday. That the Lord will eventually have to have his bones broken and they can count every one. That is how they recognize. And they beg him, stay with us. And Christ does stay with them, albeit in a manner they perhaps did not anticipate. Those two principal actions show how he stays with us. In the liturgy of the Word and the liturgy of the Eucharist, united under this word we call Mass. And every day we come together to celebrate this word called Mass and this action called Mass. We again and again beg the Lord, stay with us.